Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, is a city rich in history and culture, with several important historical landmarks that offer a glimpse into its fascinating past. Here's an introduction to some historical landmarks and cultural figures that provide a deep connection to Zagreb's past, from medieval times to the early 20th century. While the famous stone gate reflects the city's medieval history and religious devotion, the house of Klotilda Buratti symbolizes the intellectual and social progress of a more recent era. The statue of Marija Jurić Zagorka, as well as the novel A Goldsmith's Treasure, tie together the historical, cultural, and literary heritage of the city, showcasing the rich tapestry of Zagreb's identity. All of these sites are a short walking distance from each other, in the heart of Zagreb's historical center. Hidden Histories of Zagreb, Croatia. Number 4. Bibliophile travelers that want to visit Croatia should get their hands on Croatia's first historical novel. Written in 1871 by August Šenoa and recently translated into English, The Goldsmith's Treasure is a tragic love story and is often compared to Romeo and Juliet. It is a tale of prohibited love between the common daughter of a goldsmith and a nobleman's son, and it's set right in the heart of Zagreb. Although the leading characters in the story are fictitious, the same medieval streets, squares, churches, markets, and monuments you will see in Zagreb all appear in this book. Let's meet Dora and Pavio.
So we are the fictional characters from this novel. This is the first Croatian historical novel. It's called The Goldsmith's Treasure, and the author of this book is one of the most famous Croatian writers. His name is August Šenoa. Some people call this book the Croatian version of Romeo and Juliet because of its tragic love plot. This was Dora, and she was a commoner. I was a nobleman. My name was Pavle, and because it was the 16th century, marriage between two different classes wasn't possible, so we made a lot of enemies. And one of them, his name was Grga Chocolin, he poisoned Dora right there in her house. Her house was the first house to the right of the stone gate, and she died. And after that I was so sad and hopeless, so stricken with grief, that I went to war against the Turks and I died there fighting. It's a very, very sad story.
The fight for love and passion is dramatized with the addition of nobles, commoners, charlatans, and murderers, all who attempt to divide the devotions of Dora and Pavio. In order to commemorate their famous heroine, the residents of Zagreb commissioned Croatian sculptor Ivo Kerdis to create a statue of Dora. The city set the statue into the wall of the stone gate just next to Dora's house. Dora lived in the first house on the left of the stone gate. It was her job to lock and unlock the gate every morning and evening. Her iconic image is always holding a small chest with a key to the gate inside. A monument to the author, August Šenoa, can be found a short distance east of Jelačica Square. Hidden Histories of Zagreb, Croatia. Number 3. The first professional Croatian woman journalist and the most read Croatian author, Marija Jurić Zagorka, born in 1873. Her work mainly consists of historical, social, and adventure novels, but she also had a significant impact on Croatian society due to her uncompromising fight for gender equality, women's rights, and workers' rights. Though journalism was a male profession, she overcame prejudices and barriers. As a political journalist for the Zagreb newspaper Obzar, she was forbidden to work in the same office with men. At the same time, she led political battles and organized many demonstrations. Marija founded the first Croatian female magazine, the Ženski List. She also founded Vrata, the first female workers' organization. She was the first female in Zagreb to smoke in public. She was the first female in Zagreb to wear pants. She even went so far as to wear a necktie. Because of her work, she spent time in prison, and she was also forced into exile. Her fight for women's equality made her so reviled, she was brought to the edge of poverty, and she was harassed and humiliated by her neighbors. But today, almost 150 years after her birth, she is still the most read, most popular, and most loved female writer in all of Croatia. If you visit Zagreb, you can visit her imposing monument placed in the heart of busy Tkalci Sava Street, just across from the Marija Jurić Zagorka Library. Hidden Histories of Zagreb, Croatia. Number 2.
My name is Buratti, and this is Klotilda Buratti. She's my wife. We are here. Unfortunately, yes, we are here because back in the 19th century, most of the nobility lived here in the upper town, and all of these palaces around us were actually palaces of the noble family. On the left is my wife's palace. She was the owner of that palace. The interesting thing is that she got it as a present from her father because he made her to marry me. I was working in trade down in Venice, and her father was trade minister here in Zagreb, and it was a business deal between him and I. It worked out great for me, but it did not work out for her because she basically wasn't in love with me, but I was also much older than she was, and I was working all the time. But she had to find a way to entertain herself, and actually she did, and the story about that is quite controversial, and she will tell you why.
Well, you can only imagine a young noble lady back in the 19th century. Everybody would expect that she would, act with some kind of manners, but she actually kind of refused to, and she actually didn't live alone in this huge palace because she was quite known for her huge parties and celebrations and dance evenings in the palace, and that was not in a good way known at the time. And besides all the parties, she was also known for a couple of her love affairs as well. But we only know about one for sure, and that was with her lawyer. He is important because, because of her eccentric lifestyle, her family disowned her after her father's death, and she had nobody to leave this palace to. So she made a will which said that she's going to leave this palace to the city of Zagreb, but under one condition, and that is that it's only used for parties and celebrations, and that nobody can live inside. So after she died, her lover had to move out, and the city got the palace, and they still respect her will, so nobody lives inside, and it's actually closed for public, but it's only open when some sort of event is held inside by, sponsored by the city. So it's actually quite a beautiful palace because she invested a lot of money to make it beautiful because, with all of those parties she had to show her worth. But besides all of those parties, she was also quite famous for charity work because her family, Vranicani, they were actually quite known for doing charity, so she also gave a lot of her money for educating young girls, which was quite a big and unusual thing to do back in the 19th century because many people weren't allowed to go to, or didn't have money to go to school, but also young girls were even in the worst case than most of the people. So she was quite a persona.
Hidden Histories of Zagreb, Croatia. Number 1. The upper town of Zagreb originally had 5 gates, but only one of those gates remains today. The stone gate of the upper town is Zagreb's last remaining gate. This gate was originally built in the 13th century, and as you can imagine, it has been through a lot. In the year 1731, there was a massive fire in Zagreb, and half of the town went up in flames, including the stone gate. When the flames were finally extinguished, the people sifting through the ashes found something incredible. A small painting on a piece of wood of Mary holding baby Jesus, and it was completely untouched by the fire. Of course, this was proclaimed a miracle. Today, this wooden painting is preserved behind bars inside a little chapel located inside the stone gate passageway. As you are walking through the gate, you are also walking through the chapel. It is quite an interesting and unique setup. The chapel is dedicated to the miracle painting, and the Holy Virgin Mary of Stone Gate is also now the patron saint of the city of Zagreb, which makes this chapel the most popular chapel in the city. The walls of the chapel are also covered with stone plaques. Each of these thank you tiles tells the story of how someone's prayers for a miracle to the Holy Virgin Mary of the Stone Gate was answered. In the past, when your prayer was answered, you would inscribe the tablet with Hvala, or thank you in Croatian, and then list what prayer was answered. Most of the tiles you can see refer to the recovered health of loved ones. A very old sign on the outside of the gate reads, "Through this gate it is forbidden to drive a carriage, ride a horse, or pass with cattle." Part of the gate also has a statue of Dora Krupik, a famous literary character in the Croatian classic novel, The Goldsmith's Treasure. And lastly, on the roof of the stone gate is a spiked star. This could possibly be the earliest example of air defense in history. These spiked stars on the rooftops of Zagreb were put in place to catch low-flying witches in medieval times. But the only one that had any success with these things was probably the crafty guy selling them.